Okay, this is going to be a video about doing division of polynomials. Remember, as you're watching this, if you have questions or get confused, you can always pause or rewind and go watch things again. If you're dividing by a monomial, meaning a single term, the division is pretty simple. You can just divide everything by 2x. So 6x to the fourth divided by 2x is 3x to the third. Negative 2x third divided by 2x is negative x squared. 3x squared divided by 2x is actually 3 over 2x. And then negative 6 divided by 2x is negative 3 over x. Just a division. You can think about it as also breaking this up into a bunch of little fractions. And then when you break that up and simplify it down, you're going to get that anyways. So dividing by a monomial is pretty simple. Dividing by a binomial is substantially more complicated, actually. That's where we're going to spend most of our time today. Before I do long division of a polynomial, I'm going to remind us of how long division works in general. So I'm going to do this problem over here first. To do long division, 6 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. I do 7 minus 6 to get 1. Drop down this 6. 6 goes into 16 twice. 2 times 6 is 12. 16 minus 12 is 4. Drop down this 3. 6 goes into 43 7 times. So 6 times 7 is 42. Subtract, I get a 1. Drop down this 2. 6 goes into 12 twice. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract that, I get a 0. And that's my quotient. 7,632 divided by 6 is 1272. Over here with the polynomial, we're going to do a very similar process. So I have 2x to the third plus x squared minus 7x minus 6. I'm going to only concern myself with the first variable. I don't worry about this negative 2 for much of the process. It has one step here and there, but not much. It's mostly about the first variable. The question is, how many times does x go into 2x to the third? X times what equals 2x to the third? That's really the question. Well, x times x, 2x squared is 2x to the third. So I'm going to put 2x squared here. And it has to go into that spot so that the powers line up. You have to line up the powers as you're figuring this out, as you're working it out. Now, I do some multiplication. 2x squared times x is 2x to the third. That was the whole point. 2x squared times negative 2 is negative 4x squared. And just like how way over here we did subtraction, here we're going to subtract this whole entire thing. Now, this is the step you're going to mess up. 2x to the third minus 2x to the third is 0. That's the point. You're going to get that one right. That's not a big deal. But x squared minus negative 4x squared is actually x squared plus 4x squared, which is 5x squared. And that's the one you're going to forget to do. And I'll show some other ways to think about that later. Then, just like we did over here, we're going to drop down this negative 7x. Now I go again. X goes into 5x squared, 5x times. Because 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times negative 2 is negative 10x. I'm going to subtract these. Well, 5x squared minus 5x squared is 0. That's the point. Negative 7x minus negative 10 is really plus 10. So negative 7 plus 10 is 3x. No power. Drop down the negative 6. X goes into 3x 3 times. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So I subtract these, I get a 0. So this right here is my quotient. That means that 2x to the third plus x squared minus 7x minus 6 divided by x minus 2 is 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. Great. If you want to see that again, rewind it, watch it again, but we'll do another one. Again, let me go through regular division. 6 can't go into 1. I'm over here. 6 can't go into 1, but it goes into 12 twice. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract that and I get a 0. Drop down this 7. 6 goes into 7 once. 1 times 6 is 6. Subtract that, I get a 1. Now I could do a point 0 and drop down a decimal and start doing decimals. We don't want to do decimals for this process. We also have the old friend, the remainder. This is really 21 remainder 1. This number right here is my remainder. And what your grade school teachers didn't tell you when they first showed you this is really the same as 21 and 1/6. You can take the remainder and divide it by the divisor and get your 1/6. That gives you your mixed number. So we're having a remainder when we do this problem over here. We're going to do the same thing. 3x minus 1 is going into 3x to the third minus x squared minus 12x minus 6. Well, again, I'm just checking the first things, this and this. 3x times what is 3x to the third? That's the question. And the answer is x squared. 3x times x squared is 3x to the third, so that's x squared. X squared times 3x is 3x squared. X squared times 1 is negative 3. X squared, so that should be the third right there. Subtract these. One thing you can do is instead of doing a negative and a parenthesis and just trying to think about that, you can actually just distribute the negative and make it a plus. So instead of doing minus to negative, I can just make this a plus and make this a minus and do this. 3x to the third minus 3x squared is 0. Negative x squared plus 3x squared is 2x squared. Something about this feels wrong. Oh, this number right here shouldn't have been 3x squared. This number should have been 1x squared. So let me just do that all over again. X squared times 3x is 3x to the third. X squared times negative 1 is negative x squared. Then instead of subtracting, I'm just going to switch these signs. 3x to the third minus 3x to the third is 0. Negative x squared plus x squared is also 0. So I'm going to drop down the negative 12x and the negative 6. 3x goes into negative 12x negative 4 times. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12x. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Then because I'm doing subtraction, I switch these signs from positive to negative and negative to positive. And I get negative 2. Oh, negative 6 minus 4 is negative 10. I did that wrong in one of my classes also. Negative 6 minus 4. Negative 6 minus 4 is negative 10. Since there's nothing left to drop down, my answer becomes x squared minus 4. And then the remainder is minus 10 over 3x minus 1. Last one. This rectangle has an area of x to the fourth plus 6x squared minus 16 units squared. I know that area is length times width of a rectangle. So if I want to find the width, I can just divide by the length. So to find this length here, I'm going to do x to the fourth plus 6x squared minus 16 divided by x squared minus 2. Now, something that you need to do on this inside part here is keep track of places. I need to have placeholders for x to the third and x to the first. So now my powers go 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And that needs to happen on the inside. It's not such a big deal on the outside, but on the inside you need to have that. You'll actually find in this problem it's not going to matter, but there will be other problems where it does. X squared times x squared is going to give me x to the fourth. So I get x to the fourth minus 2x squared, and I do my multiplying. X squared x squared times x squared is x to the fourth, and x squared times negative 2 is negative 2x squared. Subtract these, switch my signs, and I get the 8x squared, and this is a negative 16. So x is going to become 8. So it's 8 times x squared is 8x squared. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. Switch the signs, you get 0. So the answer is x squared plus 8. Hope that was helpful. I know it was quick, but you can go back and rewind it and watch it slower if you need to. Have a wonderful weekend.